All right, Sunday morning, September 8th, video log continuing with my Oud project build out. I was uh, at a key point in the project where I had a need for planing and jointing, and I did not want to invest in any power tools. Because of finances, and second, my shop is at the back of my home, a room in the back of my home, and I cannot put any power tools, loud, noisy power tools, when I don't even have space back here, right? So I was hoping that I could use hand tools through this project. I'd never used a hand plane before, except some scrubbing type stuff I've done. So I was fairly skeptical in my ability and or my skill to set up a plane and then actually use it for something um, effective, right? And actually, I was at a point where I completed the neck block on the wood. I was working on the tail block, and I do not have a 910 for the neck block. I guess I got lucky because in the US, construction lumber is 1.5 inch thickness, right? So I just use SPF and I got away with it. For the tail block, it requires a 9 to 10 millimeter, and I don't have anything even close to that dimension, right? So, and that's where that was one reason I had to figure out a solution for planing and jointing. And then immediately following that tail end, I have to work on the ribs, right? And then also I was building some shelving and what have you for my shop. So here's an example. I did this last night, and I didn't have any plain set. So this is construction lumber. I had to use some file. Looks pretty crappy, right? I did the best I could, right? So this morning I set about and I challenged myself to set up my Chinese plain iron, Chinese plane that you see over there, right? And see how far I can get in terms of actually being able to plane and smooth and dimension wood blank, right? So this plain iron I bought a few weeks back, recommendation Rex Kruger, and I didn't set it up or anything. Last night I tried using it, but I was fairly dejected because everything was getting stuck in this opening, right? So this morning I did some research, and it all led to the fact that the chip breaker is not mated correctly with the plain iron, right? And there's a gap. So when I'm planing, the wood fibers and pieces are getting stuck between the blade and the chip iron, right? I saw one Rex Kruger video. He had shown how to give the chip breaker an edge. I used some Harbor Freight 120 and then 240 grit paper, and it took me about 15-20 minutes to get through the process of giving the chip breaker a reasonable edge. Not anything fantastic. I got to still do some more work on it, and then also I worked a bit on the plain iron because there was no secondary bevel. It had a primary of 30. I measured it. There was no secondary bevel, right? So after that was done, I put it back together, right? And I took a few strokes, and initially I was fairly disappointed again because I was struggling on these planes. In order to extend the plain iron, you got to tap the iron from the top, To retract it, you got to tap the wood on the back here, right? And I don't have any wooden magnets or anything. I'm just using this Harbor Freight plastic and rubber. I use the rubber side for this stuff, right? Someday I will make myself a mallet or go get me one. Anyways, and then I used very crude plane stop, just a piece of fence material on a clamp, and that's how so I just put my piece right against this as I plane, right? So this is again construction grade lumber, and one of the things with construction grade lumber that you get your from Home Depot and Lowe's, which it makes sense, but I don't like it. It's the sides are beveled, right? So when you're handling the lumber, you don't splinter or anything, right? So I don't know if you can see it. So I did plane this, and it was not dimensioned correct. So I did plane the two faces and the two ends, right? Or the edges, and this is the result I got. So again, what I started with was something similar to what you're seeing out here on the shelf, right? And where I ended up here was something like this, right? Still could be improved quite a bit, I know, because there's all these techniques of hand planing that I gotta learn, right? But the positive here is that from nothing, now I have at least hope that I can use my hand plane to not only smooth but also to joint and dimension the blanks and pieces I'm working on, right? There's more work to be done on this plane. I have not checked if the sole is flat. Most likely it is not. I still got to set up my sharpening station so I can sharpen the plane iron correctly. Still more work on the chip breaker. One thing I did notice is that when I hold this iron, it can be used when I hold this plane, it can be used in both a push and a pull mode. I tuck my hand behind here, put my index finger on the side, and I loosely kind of hold this handle, right? Using both hands, right? And I started getting some abrasions and what have you on the inside of my hand, right? So I got to figure out my grip position on how to effectively grip it to prevent that from happening. But net not too bad, I think. Time will tell. Here's another thing I noticed. Let me just put my phone down just for a minute. So what I was getting out of the planing process are, some of these are actually pretty thin. Yep, and they were kind of full length, so they were not breaking or anything. So this is my full stroke, and this is what came out, right? One example, I've got some even thinner than this, right? And what little I've researched is that if you get something like that, your setup is kind of okay, and you're doing reasonably okay on the hand planing. But again, it's just a process, a lot of learning here, and just keep moving on. Later.